Okay, in the following podcast, I sat down with Moishe Chanin, who is doing amazing work in the recovery community of Crown Heights. He gets involved in all this community stuff. He created Itchke Shtiebel. He's a life coach, but what he does is deep coaching, and I love speaking to him. He's helped so many people. One of my favorite things I talked about on this podcast was his actual journey and his own struggle and his marriage. Obviously, you guys know that I love marriage and the topic of marriage. So we got pretty deep in that, and it was super hopeful and super beautiful. A lot of Hasidus came in there. It was an awesome podcast. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did.
Hello and welcome to the Brainstorm Podcast. And now, your host, Sonny Perlman.
So, okay. First of all, thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
This is very, very exciting.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to be talking, what I had in mind to talk about when you came is obviously addiction and the work you're doing and maybe some of your life experiences, however that goes about. But you started talking about my favorite topic. So I will ask you right out the gate. You mentioned to me right before we were live, unless we start the podcast earlier, I have no idea how that works, that your wife is on vacation.
Yeah.
And I smiled and be like, oh, that's interesting. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
What is it? So in my life, that doesn't really happen. What do you mean your wife is on vacation by herself?
With her friends.
With her friends. Oh, okay. With her friends.
Yeah.
And you say they do that often.
Well,
I don't know what the question is yet.
I
I'm
realize
just shocked.
I've learned that it's something that's relatively often. Yeah.
It's relatively often.
To what I see in
you don't want to say it live, and your wife listens. She's like, "It's not that often."
No, I think she'll acknowledge that.
She'll acknowledge that it's often. Okay, so what you're talking about, you obviously have been. I've heard speech of yours where you were talking about your marriage was like on the rocks, like when you were in your active addiction and all that stuff. I don't know if I'm supposed to bring all that up.
Yeah.
But you put that public, so I'm just going to throw it at you. How did that go from when I mentioned your wife? You're just like your eyes light up and you're just like excited to talk about it and it's unique and like how is that journey? I'll just go there.
I think an important. Okay, let's say two. Okay, I think of three moments. Right, one would be today. One would be active addiction, but just right at the end, and then my first phone call with my wife in rehab. Okay.
All right.
So, I think a massive pain point for our marriage was in my active addiction, the way that my active addiction had affected our marriage was me simply like not being available. I just crash. When I'm needed, I just would either sleep in Shabbos afternoon. I know it's very common and normal for people to sleep Shabbos afternoon. In my house, it just almost never happens. So I'm available. Like that's
now.
That's now.
Okay.
And it's been like that for a long time. So I'm not sure if that was a standard that my wife brought to the table that I didn't realize, but it's become normal for us. So I was, I'd go to shul, I'd come back, I'd crash, I would not be available. Sunday mornings, my wife was very, very, it's dear to her, rightfully so, to have family time or to do something. And I just wouldn't be available for that. I'd be crashed and all that stuff. So that was one of the biggest ways that my active addiction had affected our marriage. It on a very apparent way. It also affected it in my inability to have emotional intimacy to the level that I'm aware of today.
Right.
But the night I had my last drink,
Wait, before you go to last drink.
Yeah.
Now you're in the field and you're looking back.
Yeah.
And you're going to go there, but just because I don't lose it, what do you think about addiction makes you not able to be intimate and not able to be there. And being, I know more about addiction than most people in the world, but a lot of people listening,
Yeah.
what about addiction was you were not able to do that? Why can't you just do
Yeah.
your addiction and also do this?
Cool. So I think as soon as we talk about addiction, it's important for us to articulate that addiction is not about the drug. It's about the pain that we're trying to numb. And part of that pain, or part of that issue, part of that dysfunction or dis-ease, is a difficulty in feeling certain feelings. I don't want to feel certain feelings: painful, uncomfortable, restless, irritable, discontent, right?
Right.
So when I have a drink, like it says in the big book, right?
Right.
Like it says in the big book. I just heard myself saying that. Like it says in the big book that, we drank or we did drugs because we were restless, irritable, discontent. And when we had a drink or a drug, it almost instantly relieved us from that discomfort. So what I understand today is that
So how does that affect intimacy? I'm just going in.
yeah.
So are you going on or are you?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
going to continue.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background.
Got to move faster, bro.
No, because we're talking about addiction.
We got time.
And so many of us are so fixated on the addiction, the behavior, or the substance that we're not paying attention. That's like literally, like they say, it's like the tip of the iceberg. It's
Right.
literally almost nothing to do with the actual addiction.
I will tell you that the frustration I have with this is that even people that say that and they understand that, they're still incredibly focused on the addiction. Like I see a lot of people in this field, and even this home, which we'll talk about the sober living because I know it is an interesting topic, but even people that are in this home, I'll be like, I'm working on the person. That's what we're working on. And then everybody's like, well, how do you let them do this? And how do you let them do this? And I'm like, all that's about the people, places, and things and the addiction and staying away from it. None of it has anything to do. So don't give lip service to the idea that it's about the person and then you focusing on the actual, substance, which is like
Yeah.
tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, like literally. That's like
So it's hard to, it's easy kind of to say it. It's hard to like live it and understand that idea. So I'm glad you're saying it.
I have somebody very close to me that he got caught in yeshiva with inappropriate. They found inappropriate things and they blamed it on him.
Okay.
And they told him that he has to write to the Rebbe, to the Lubavitch Rebbe, to ask him what his tikkun's going to be.
Right.
I think he had to do that and one other thing. Anyway, so he
The Rebbe was alive at the time. Okay.
Yeah. So he wrote to the Rebbe. This is probably in 1989, 1990 maybe. So he writes to the Rebbe and he gets a response. Very very few words. And if I'm saying it not exactly in order, but these are the Rebbe's words. Chayes b'limudach, which means you should have excitement in your learning of Chassidus. Hesach hadas. We'll talk about that. That's the whole point of this thing. And Oscar Altzian, I'll mention you at the Friedrich Rebbe's caver. I'll daven for you. Hesach hadas. What is Hesach hadas? We could talk about this for a long time, but my understanding of what Hesach hadas means is that your attention and dramatization is not on the subject. Don't dramatize the subject. Hesach hadas. Don't actually give it any. Don't give it any weight, any energy, anything. Just focus on your learning. And I remember hearing this like from a different context. Somebody explained to me. I was in a coaching session one time, and I was talking to my coach, and I was talking about a time I remember being on the train on the way to work, or being at work in my corporate job, and as a religious Jew, I'm always trying to like be appropriate, right? But I would notice myself, my attention would go towards things that are inappropriate, or for me, as a married Jewish person. And I felt a lot of shame for that. Not, thank God I never acted or did anything like that upon it. But still, I felt shame from the fact that I even wanted. And my coach at the time was like, dude, you're a man. Hashem created you this way. You can't judge yourself for having that instinct. You can, however, choose, and you have full control over your thinking, your speaking, and your acting. So that you are responsible for.
Right.
But for your natural... So...
Well, I see that the other... Yeah, I don't know who said this, but the only way to light up a dark room is with a candle. You can't push the darkness away by, like, concentrating on the darkness. So you should focus on, like, in this case, Hasidus, but, like, don't spend your time focusing on the disease.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about.
It's even, again, I'm looking over here as if there's a big book.
Big book
there.
is not here. It's up there.
It talks about... Yeah, I see it over
See,
there.
the big book should be here. This is...
Yeah, Taka's like... What do
We have Les
The
Miserables.
Intelligent Investor.
The Intelligent... These are... Should I tell you the secret of these books?
Yeah, sure.
I don't think I said it live on a podcast yet. But if anybody's seen these books... Oh, you want to put it in?
Yeah, sure.
Hold on. Alcoholics Anonymous goes on top. You can't put it underneath because of the holiness.
No, safe. Okay.
Just put it on top. Facing out so everybody knows how excited I am about it. So the reason for these books is not just to look very smart. Although that's what I want to do. I want to look very smart. But the reason for these books is that when I put the mics at the end of this table, it falls over.
Okay.
Yes. So I had to weigh it down with the books.
Satisfied with your delivery.
There you go.
Suspense. Yeah, I appreciate it.
But I was okay. So
I want to talk
the big
here,
book.
I don't remember.
Oh
exactly.
man, he's going first. We're going,
over,
but
yeah.
Ian, folks.
No. Dude, I think it's actually on this page.
It was on that
It's
page.
on that page.
Holy cow.
Yes.
Just for anybody who doesn't know, this is the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is like the
Dude, it was
Torah.
literally on this page.
That's crazy. Okay, let's hear what it has to say. I knew you were coming. That's why.
Exactly. Here. Okay, so on page 70.
Page 70.
So to sum up about sex, we earnestly pray for the right ideal, for guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity, and for the strength to do the right thing. If sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves the harder into helping others. We don't shame ourselves, judge ourselves, freak out. That's not what we do. We throw ourselves harder into helping others. We shine the light. We think of their needs and work for them. This takes us out of ourselves. It quiets the imperious urge when to yield would mean heartache.
You know that seems to go really argue with the whole therapeutic movement.
I'm all for that if that's what works.
No, I'm saying, you understand, I mean, like therapy, a lot of therapy, and probably the biggest criticism I have of therapy and other people have, is that we are ruminating over and over and over on topics that maybe we should be moving on from. And this is a tricky thing for me to say, but, I have the big book told me the same thing. So what I'm saying is, no, like I had somebody this week come to me, hey, I don't know what to do on this and this and that, and I'm like, you're talking about all these problems, and these are all about emotions that you feel, and you felt all these emotions before. There was a point in your life where it was working out. And at that point, what was happening? And at that point, he was sponsoring people. He was on top of it. He was helping people. He was going around. And he's like, I don't feel good enough to do all that stuff. And I said, that's when we have to do it. This idea that I got to be like perfect before I could, but he's going to ruminate over these same topics. And the answer is, like on page 70, you said, like, go out and help people.
Yeah.
I don't know if that, pep talk worked, but it's completely obvious to me that he needed to light a candle in the darkness instead of pushing that darkness away.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to say that when you're feeling in absolutely the lowest place, to be like, okay, how do I help someone else? Or if I'm feeling so guilty and ashamed about those sexual thoughts, and then like, okay, go help someone.
Yeah, we're so lucky as addicts that for us, our lives depended on it. So we were so open to doing these radical things, like be of service when we're feeling completely down and depressed, like, you know.
Right.
But I do want to say just a little disclaimer on behalf of the many therapists that don't necessarily ruminate and allow their clients to just come in every single week and cultivate an unhelpful story about themselves.
Right.
You know, I think there are many therapists that I've heard of a book. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, let's hear.
I've heard of a book.
What's the book?
It's called Bad Therapy.
Oh, I started reading it. It's fantastic. I don't know. Tell us more about. I just read it, not the whole thing.
We already made the point.
But
the point is that it's really important for us to not cultivate a story about ourselves or cultivate like.
Wait, so the book is Bad Therapy. Do you know who wrote that book? This is Ellie. He's gonna be my new Jamie. He's gonna have to look up who wrote the book. Do it on your phone. No? Okay, so Bad Therapy.
Yeah.
We try. Jamie on Joe Rogan is very fast. We're seeing if Ellie could eventually. Who wrote it?
It looks like it was actually a movie at first.
No. It's a book. Just write Bad Therapy book.
I forgot her name. It's a Jewish name. She's a Yid.
Abigail Schreier.
Abigail Schreier.
Yeah.
I will tell you that the book has a lot of good ideas, and I suggest people read it, but it has a lot of good research about the problem. I don't agree with her solutions. So
okay.
I will say that. So
Yeah.
I first of all, I think it was like a very broad criticism of therapy that maybe it was too broad.
Right.
But it wasn't saying anti-therapy. It was specifically for young people, so that's important. It wasn't for older people. But a lot of the conclusions she came up with were not scientific. They were just like, she believes like if you're tougher on kids, it works better. Like, you know, so I'll give you an example. Can I give you one example just because you know it's jumping off the topic? But she has this thing that Republican females have less emotional issues than Democrat males. That's pretty harsh. Because in general, females, in all the statistics, have higher emotional issues than men. So you would think that they would kind of both be higher. Maybe they would be lower, but the fact is that the females on the Republican side, and then her conclusion is that Republicans are generally more about consequential, like consequences when they're children. They're very in old values when they're raising their children, and they're tougher and all that stuff. I don't agree with her conclusion. I would guess another conclusion is that their family values are very, very powerful, and they have strong support networks that you might have less of in the Democratic side, because it's more about inner cities and there's more city life. Republicans are more out in the country, and there's much more about family and kind of clan and community and church is a big thing. So, I mean, I think there's a lot more things there. But her criticism, you could go on, but her criticism to therapy was a lot about this ruminating and, like, bringing up this stuff and then, like, giving it realness by continuing to say it over and over and over again until you believe it.
Yeah.
You know. That was your point, or is there another point? I'm sorry.
Oh, that was a point.
I threw you off. Why were you bringing up the book? Sorry. I got excited because I just literally read it on Shabbos last week.
I don't remember, but I do remember what question you asked, and that was about my marriage.
Your marriage. Okay, we're back to your marriage.
Yeah, let's go back to that.
Sorry about that.
It's all good.
This is how my podcast goes. Wherever the brain goes.
I was actually going to take it further.
No, keep going, bro.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll come back to that. Yeah.
I will tell you, I love the fact that we're going to talk about marriage a little bit.
Okay,
and we'll
cool.
get into other stuff, but because I think that marriage is the answer to almost all the problems if you could do it right. And I know that's that's a little risky thing to say because people get married to fix.
I think you should say that again and explain what that means. Like, what does that mean? What are you telling the people? What does that mean?
Okay,
How
so
would good marriage be the answer to everything?
I think that there's a lot of pieces here, but I think that we are incomplete until we have a partner doing life together with us. I really think that we could work on ourselves as much as we can, but if we don't have someone to share that with, it almost like peters out and falls away at the wayside. Also, I think we need to live life with a mirror. Like I have this new app I wanna make, which I'm about to. The app is, and it's specifically for psychedelic people, but it's not only for psychedelic people. But then we can get into that if you want also. But okay, it's specifically for that.
So many questions.
It's so many questions. You ready? You ready? Okay,
Well,
you can ask questions. The app is this. You ready for the
There are
app?
people who are psychedelic.
They're psychedelic people.
Okay.
Oh yeah, they're definitely people that don't need psychedelics. They're already in psychedelics.
Yeah,
but that's
okay.
not what I was talking about. The app is that people who say they're like really changed and grew and they're like they really have changed. Like this should be an app that the 10 closest people to you get to vote if you actually did change. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it's like everybody feels enlightened. Why don't we let someone else decide? So it's kind of a hilarious app. I don't know how to make it work, but it would
Call it Sonny Perlman in an app.
it would be hilarious. Anyways, so what I'm saying is, when you're married to someone, you can't say I'm better. Because there's somebody else you're supposed to be treating with the most care and love, and that person has to see you developed. Like you say, you're in the middle of your addiction. You can't be intimate with someone else. It is such a deep narcissistic place that being intimate with someone else is just it's not even a possibility.
Yeah.
That's-
Or let's just say there's a spectrum, meaning
Right.
based on the intimacy that I can experience today, that was when I was 15 years old. I told a girl that I loved her.
Okay.
I really loved her. But now that I understand, I have a wife and I have kids, and I understand the spectrum of how loving we can be and how much love we can experience, that it was nice. But
Right.
you know, when we get married, all of our emotions are experienced in a much heightened state. All of them.
Right.
When we have kids, it's even more. So, was it love? Yeah, it was love. But
Was it love? You saying on it there's a spectrum.
yeah, I'm just saying there's a spectrum.
'Cause
For
I-
a 15-year-old, that was love.
It's not to be confused with love on the spectrum.
No. That's pretty funny. No, it's funny because when I am so literal sometimes. Speaking of love on the spectrum, but that the first person I ever told I love you to was to my wife, and it's not because I was dating my whole teenage life and had real relationships, and a lot of people told me they loved me, and I never repeated back because in my head, I was like, if I love you, that means I have to now marry you and spend the rest of my life with you and hold you and care about you and jump in front of cars for you. And like that love was, I never saw it, I guess because of such an extreme like personality, which hasn't changed. I never saw that as like, you're saying the spectrum. That wasn't love. Maybe I was being too literal then.
Right. But interestingly, I had the similar thing, meaning I wouldn't throw the word love around.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I'd actually get very offended when people just like be throwing that word around. Like, that's a serious word. But yeah, but at 15 for one person, I said it.
Right, for one person. Okay.
So
Okay, so we're going back to, so now you're up to.
yeah, we're talking about intimacy, and I say, yeah, the level of intimacy that I'm able to experience today is in a much greater, right? But how am I going to experience intimacy? There has to be vulnerability, and I didn't have I had a level of vulnerability, but not to the extent that I have today.
Right. She could see the real you now.
Yeah. Well, again, that's also a whole other conversation.
Oh man, I keep pushing buttons.
You
Yeah,
keep pushing buttons.
I don't even mean it. I just Let's hear.
No, because okay. So if I'm feeling a feeling, right, and I share it with my wife, especially when it shows my vulnerability. It shows I'm a man, right, and I'm sharing honestly about what I'm feeling. That doesn't mean my feeling is me. That's it. I'm just saying. I'm just being a little bit of a stickler about it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But for the closer it is to my heart, the more I identify with it, the more vulnerability it's going to take for me to share it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So today I'm able
Is
to
a
share
part of
more.
it in addiction that we have so much shame that we can't show who we really are to our significant other?
Well, we can't show who we think we really are. Yeah.
Right. We're
Yeah,
scared.
because we have ideas about who we are and we're ashamed of that. Which, by the way, if we're ashamed about what we think who we are, then it's an indication. We could talk about that too. It's an indication that it's a lie, because otherwise you wouldn't feel the shame.
Explain that a little bit more.
Shame. Okay, so there's many definitions of shame. I'd like to propose one, and that is the experiencing yourself of something that is the opposite of who you actually are. Experiencing yourself. So you're looking in the mirror and you see the reflection of somebody that's the opposite of who you are.
The opposite.
Yeah. Otherwise, you wouldn't feel shame. You're like, oh yeah, that's me. The shame is the fire alarm system that tells you that's not you. That's not you. You have to do something about it. Don't let that person be seen, because that's not you. Because for you to be seen as that is, and shame is like is almost existential, right? Because that's what's so close. That's what creates the addiction.
So when you're when you're living in shame,
Yeah.
you are living the opposite of who you are. You're literally living that. I'm making very extreme. I know you're going to keep saying spectrum.
Yeah.
I got you. I'm trying to make points. I'm getting the spectrum thing. I'm very into spectrum stuff too. I am, because even addiction I see on a spectrum, which is another controversial discussion. But when you're living shame, your inner, let's say, your pentala yid, the part of you that is real and pure, is looking at it and going, this is the anathema. I'm thinking of that word. Like, it's the opposite of who I am. Like, this is the opposite.
Antithesis?
What? Antithesis. That's the word.
Oh, cool. I cannot.
Thank
I
you.
just know that word. Wow.
Okay, fist bump on the antithesis. This is the antithesis of who you are. So this is, and if you're living there all the time, I see this a lot with relationship addicts and sex addicts. They are living in shame almost constantly.
Yeah.
And
or constantly in fear of that shame. Yeah.
or right. So they're doing this, the cycle. But you're saying it is the opposite. It's interesting because I wouldn't have put it that way. I think it's beautiful because shame is always, it's almost like dealing with someone with a personality disorder. Like, they can't hurt you unless they tap into something that's based on true facts. Like, if someone came to me and said, you're a racist and that's why I hate you, I'm like, I don't think it's really based. Like, but say something that's a little bit real.
Right. Or a little bit about what you believe about yourself.
Right. It has to be based on something that, you believe.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're saying even that is not, you're making the point that it's not, okay.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. I never heard shame referred to that way.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm definitely going to think more about it.
Yeah, and I feel like shame is the emotion that's closest to our very identity. Right? So let me just paint a picture for a second, okay? So let's say your pintaliyid, who you are, is the fruit itself, right? Mm-hmm. And you're born into this world. You start living your life, and you're just being a person who's sweet and fresh and good. There comes a certain point you have to have a peel to protect yourself, right? And this is like it's
like Cleopas.
Yeah, it's a klipa. It
Right.
literally is. It's an
peel.
identity that has been added on top of what already is there. So there is, even think about a kid. Before they're given a name, they're just a living being. They don't even have a name, even though, yes, it is something that goes super deep. It's something that you can, it goes so deep that when somebody faints, you can even use it. That's the most effective words you can speak to wake somebody up because it's so connected to their soul. It's still something that's added upon them. So,
I've heard one of the Jacobsons, either Simon or YY, explaining that even to put, I mean, it's a Hasidic concept, like that's what I heard from. Like, even to put a name on something is diminishing it. Not a name, any word. Anytime you use a word, it is now taking away from its essence.
yes, yeah, 100%.
Because now you put it in a box, and that thing could not have been put in a box on any level.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So that's kind of the same idea you're talking about?
yeah, yeah. In Chassid, the term is called etzem, isness.
Isness.
The fact that it is, it's isness. Sorry, I have something. There's no words for things. So, yeah.
I once read a book, and I forgot the name of the book or who wrote it or anything, but it was about Father Time. And Father Time is the person in history, like ancient history, who discovered time.
Okay.
And his punishment, I mean, I'm summing up this book. It's a fantastic, interesting, like fantasy type book.
Okay.
His punishment was to live forever and watch his damage that he did by adding time into the world.
Okay.
Where
Interesting.
he added isness to everything.
Oh,
I mean,
no,
nobody
on the
before
contrary.
him
No, okay,
knew
so
that
that's the
time
opposite
was
of my
there.
point.
Talk
That's
to
the
me.
opposite of the point.
Such a good book. Why don't I remember? I think it was
No,
Orson Scott Card.
Isness was what was. It just was. By him putting a name onto it, he created the continuum of time.
Right.
Until then, there was just now.
Right.
Yeah. So he it's not that he added isness.
Oh.
Isness what
Is
was.
so isness is the good thing.
Yeah, is what is. Is
Right.
that it is. Like,
So that word you use, etzem. What do you use?
Etzem,
Etzem is that's when it's in its pure form.
Yes. Oh,
And
not
then-
even. But that's the thing. The word form, it's before form.
Oh, okay, gotcha. It's in
it's that it
pureness.
is.
Even pureness is bad. Shoot. Can you use any word?
Beyond description. Anyway, look,
Sorry.
I could talk about this. I think this type of conversation
Yeah.
about existence itself and it deserves its own.
It deserves its own,
3
okay.
hour. Like, you have to really create context in order for people to appreciate it, and I want to keep that in mind.
Okay.
So, where the heck was
Back
I?
to your wife. Sorry. I want to know how your relationship changed.
Yeah. So
I'm thoroughly enjoying throwing around ideas with you because it's been very interesting. I also love your Hasidus piece that it's like everything is in the context of Hasidus, which I just super cool.
Thanks, man.
Super cool.
So on that, oh man, I have like a whole menu to choose from right now.
No, I want to hear about your wife.
Okay,
How did
cool.
your relationship with the wife get to a level? I deal with people, and one of the reasons I'm asking is because when you deal with people in addiction, many more times I will see a divorce happen than that the relationship becomes a beautiful thing.
Wow.
Many more times.
Wow. Yeah.
I almost, as a matter of fact, I even have like this funny thing that I probably shouldn't say out loud, but here goes, is that I don't like to recommend, if I see a divorce imminent, to recommend a guy to go to rehab before divorce because he's almost for sure going to lose the kids. Because he's the bad guy, he's the addict. You know, like no one sees the nuance of there's always two
So
parts of a
therefore,
relationship.
don't go to rehab.
If he goes to rehab before the divorce happens,
Yeah.
he then when he gets to court, they're like, of course you can't have the kids. He's a drug addict who needs to go to rehab, and it's used against them.
Wow.
And I see that in many, many cases, and it's sad to me but that's if I see, if I see the divorce is imminent. But even to the point where I don't see it as imminent, very often I'll see people 2-3 years into recovery, and then they just call it quits. So I've seen that. I don't know if you've experienced differently, but I've seen that a lot.
Yeah.
And it's actually super special to see people who have gone through it came out better. And that's what you're saying. And it's really quite gorgeous. So back to, you said the problem, basically, the intimacy. And then what happened? You called your wife. I'm going back to this. You called your wife from rehab. That's where I broke you off the first time.
Yeah, so I just want to say that night, that my last time drinking, I was saying things like we were a mistake. It was all part of like a ramble that I was like just saying. I said things including, I acknowledged certain friends of mine that have died, and I was expressing admiration of how they knew. They're so smart. They knew exactly how to deal with how I'm feeling right now. And
could I ask, were they suicidal deaths? Or no, they just died.
No, but somehow I used it.
Somehow that made sense.
Anyway, so my wife and I mean, I want to do a whole podcast just to share like my story. Like,
let's go.
Yeah, so
we got a podcast.
My wife and
let's go. Story.
My wife and I met in Israel when we were 18 years old. And we dated for a year, and at the end of the year, I wanted to marry her. We were 19. I wanted to get married. And she said no. For good reason. A lot of red flags.
Okay.
So we ended up dating, and she broke up with me 3 times. And on the 3rd time, her dad called me. I was walking down the street. She was working in New York. I had come back from Israel. I was 22 years old. I was working in the city by my brother's company. It was right in the beginning of the cash advance.
Ooh.
Yeah.
The gold rush.
Which some people are still doing really well.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
So I was wearing a suit because I was going to office. And so I was on the way home. She saw me, and it just clicked for her. So she called her parents. She said, "Can you call them?" Because she knew that if she called me, I would not. Like, I would really get brokenhearted every single time. So her dad calls me. Oh, yeah, I see her on Shabbos. And that was like literally the first time that I actually gave up. Like, okay, I've been trying and trying. And I didn't date anybody else all that time. So I saw her in the street. I'm like, that's it. It's just not happening. And I drank myself practically to sleep, and I woke up at like midnight on the Motzi Shabbos. And as I wake up and I turn on my phone, as I turn it on, the phone rings, and it's her dad, and he asks me if I'd date her. I said yes. Can I have her number? I'm just going to get my parents' approval. I asked my parents; they give me their approval like right away. I just went from my bedroom, went downstairs. Hi, Tama, I want to date Chaya. And she said, yeah, okay. Give her a blessing. I called her, and we decided to get married about an hour and a half, 2 hours later.
Right. Okay.
And we got engaged a week later just because that's how long it took for her parents to come into town.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the longest Bishah ever. What do they call it? Bishah? What are they?
Bishah Tova?
No, Bishah. What do they call it? A Bishah? Bishah is when you meet for like 1 minute and you decide you're married. The Hasidim.
Okay. Yeah,
so
yeah.
This
is us.
This is over 4 years.
Yeah. They say that takes a year and a day and an hour to do your 4th step.
There you go. That's right.
You're waiting, and then you just do it in an hour. So look, my wife and I, we really, really deeply cared and loved each other. And I had shared with her, like, she knew all my red flags because I shared them with her. I shared all my shame. But I think I shared it as a way of just like looking for somebody to love and accept me for who I believed I was. And I think today it's more about honesty and the pursuit of connection. Like, I love you, and I acknowledge that this thing is in the way of between us. So I'm going to either share it with you or work on it behind the scenes. But if I was to share it with you, it's because I look at it as the obstacle. We'll talk about it, and then we could be connected again. So I think today I'm much more in touch with what's happening for myself, within myself, as well as I have the courage and the will and the safety in my relationship to share those things, whatever they may be. And when I share those things, more connection can happen, more vulnerability, more connection, more intimacy.
Right.
So I wasn't even in touch with all these emotions. I didn't know the language of parts. I didn't even know what anxiety was.
Wow.
I experienced anxiety when I was in the psych ward, because they sent me to the psych ward that night because I said I wanted to kill myself. So I had no idea what I was feeling. All I knew is that when I do push-ups and I don't stop and I go and go and go, I don't feel that uncomfortable feeling. So, okay, cool. And then it came back like 2-3 years later. But I didn't know.
You didn't even have a word.
I didn't have a word for it. I didn't have the language or the sense of feelings.
Okay, so this really, I've heard this many times before, and I'm wondering, could I get a little bit into the Chabad community? You grew up Chabad, right?
Yeah.
It's not just Chabad community. I think it's almost like the more religious people are, the less they're able to talk about emotions. That's what I've been feeling. Although I do believe Hasidic community has other words for emotions that, let's say, like the Litvish community doesn't really. Like, I've always had an interesting thing where I'm dealing with someone who's Hasidic, or I'm dealing with someone who is coming from, like, the Yeshivish world. It's much easier to tell someone from a Hasidic world, including Chabad or Breslov and all of them, what an emotion is. Because they emotions are part of their upbringing. It just don't necessarily put words to it. Like it's but the fact that you're an adult not really knowing what anxiety is even though I've heard it many times, is completely shocking to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what did you call that when you felt it?
Well, can I
Yeah.
propose something?
Yeah.
Which I don't know is for a fact, but I'll just ask you. I don't think the world at large had that part of their vocabulary even 15 years ago. How many
Really?
people, how many Shabbos tables did you go to? How many conversations did you have 15 years ago where the word anxiety or mindfulness or presence or...
Oh boy, the problem. See, this is
definitely not manifest. That
Well,
word is like only like 4 years.
manifest. Such a good word. Although I read the original book, it's like from the 50s. The original Law of Attraction book is like from the 50s. It's written so beautifully. I love it. I forgot who wrote it. Jamie? No, I'm just kidding. It's fine. You don't have to look that up. You're talking to the wrong person. I tell you why. It's interesting in me. This is some people know this about me. Some
you
people
guys
don't.
have like 5 therapists in your family.
Yeah, this is the problem. My mother was a therapist.
Okay.
This was our language. So I grew up, and we're talking 45 years ago. So I grew up, every Shabbos table was a full discussion about emotions and what's going on in the world. And for some reason, homosexuality was always brought up at some point, and discussion like these discussions. So in a weird way, and it's one of the reasons I'm so weird, is that I'm a little bit of an alien in this world. Like every time I hear, like, what? You don't talk about this stuff, like. And we already had like opinions on the therapy community and all that stuff way before anybody even heard about it.
Wow.
We were like well advanced in that area, and we all became therapists. I think we have 9 therapists in my family, in my immediate family. Yeah, some of them are real top quality.
Yeah.
I think they're all top quality. Just not everybody has a podcast, but. They should all make podcasts. Those are my funnest podcasts, having my siblings on. I eventually will get them all on. They're not the easiest to get on. You would think they'd be like, hey, why don't you come and just hang out with me? And they're like, meh. Different. Everybody has different rules.
Okay.
No, eventually we'll have them all. Yeah, so okay, so maybe I'm off. Maybe you're right. Maybe like nobody was talking like this.
Not in my world. Not in my world, and not 90% of the people. Like, I didn't see it. Like, what did you even see in the movies?
I mean, there was tons of emotions talked about in movies.
There was love, there was anger, there was fear,
Yeah.
enthusiasm, excitement.
I mean, in the 80s, I remember a movie called High Anxiety.
Really?
It's a fantastic movie. It's with Mel Brooks. It's like partially musical. It's hilarious movie. Probably does not stand up. Like sometimes you watch 80s movies and they're terrible today because it's like,
Right.
oh my God, I can't believe I like this. But I love all Mel Brooks movies.
It wasn't around.
Okay, so
language
let me
wasn't
use this
being
as a segue. First of all, thank you for sharing your relationship with your wife. I have so many similarities, which is wild. I met my wife in Israel when I was really young, and she told me no for a year, and it was it's also a special thing, and it's maybe that's the way people should do it. I don't know, because it's turned out I grew up with my wife, which is such a beautiful thing. Like, it's like we didn't walk into it with major expectations or anything. I was just excited that she wanted to hang out with me. Like, that was pretty much, I was like, I can't believe that she's going to chill with me for the rest of my life. So I came in very, very young. Didn't have expectations. You're going to clean the floor. I mean, I didn't even know that we're going to clean the floor. It didn't occur to me that the next move is, like, pay tuition. I was like, this person, ride or die forever. We're just going to, and then we got in a station wagon and went cross country for a couple of weeks, for 6 weeks. That was like, that's how we started our marriage. Like, I'm like, this is what we're doing. This is fun. So there's a lot of similarities. And she did say no, and she knew a lot of my stories. That's why she was my best friend. So, like, she knew all of, I guess, my fake me. How do you say it? Not my, my shame. But yeah, so there was a lot of similarities. But then you ended up, now you're doing a lot of cool stuff in the field, and you got the podcast, and you got and you're doing this coaching stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
How did that come about? Like, after all this, I mean,
Yeah.
cash advance is way better. I don't know how well you're doing,
right.
but
I hear you. I didn't last in cash advance. I did that for like 3-4 months or so. I got engaged. I got married. So I was doing cash advance while I was engaged. I got married. My wife's from Australia, from Sydney.
what's your wife's maiden name?
Gestetner.
That's a famous name.
Yeah.
I don't know how I know that.
I've actually since met a lot of Gestetners.
Yeah, I've heard it.
I'm thinking about all the people that are going to listen to it that are Gestetners, and we're like, oh, okay, we want some more time on your podcast talking about Gestetners.
Yeah, why are the Gestetners famous?
Right.
Let's get a little bit of time on the Gestetners.
No, there's
I've heard the name. Right?
Yeah. So I think there are going to be two main places of where they'll be famous. First of all, there's an incredibly wealthy family, Gestetner, that made the copiers way back from Hungary.
The copiers? What does that mean?
Yeah, I think there's a big family that originally
Like
comes
copy
from Hungary.
machines?
Yeah, there's a
Oh.
Gestetner copy machine.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, and then there's some prominent Talmidei Chachamim and authors that
Right.
are Gestetners. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
And the best one is your wife,
Yeah.
by far.
On top, but like not just like second is like not even.
Right.
Let's see.
It's such a distance. Okay.
No offense, Schwer and Schwiger.
Yeah.
So let me just say this: my bottom happens. I end up in a cycle or go to rehab. 5 days, I can't talk to my wife while I'm in. I call her, and one of the first thing I ask is, I really felt like she was going to leave me. If she would leave me, I'd perfectly understand that. Perfectly just. And I was ready for that. But I just wanted to know, are you or not? And I asked her. And she tells me that as soon as I said hello, she already knew I was a different man. She knew from that first conversation, within like the first couple of minutes, she was like, wow, this is the guy I want. Yeah. And she said she was going to stay with me. And I was relieved, and so grateful for that. So that's the second moment. And, today, I think I'd like to share a perspective, and this is what's really happening in my marriage with Chaya is that we are committed to being with each other. I want to leave some space for that. We're committed to being with each other. Now, within the commitment to being with each other, tons of stuff is going to happen. Problems, arguments, differences of opinion. I don't know, whatever it may be. As long as we have that container, we're going to figure it out. And we just get better and better at figuring it out. It used to be that if I was upset at something that my wife did, I could be resentful for like 2 weeks, a month, 2 months. Or I'll try, and then I'll just get resentful, and then fall into despair and depression. Because like, oh man, it wasn't like I'm going to leave. It was like, I'm committed to being with this person forever. I guess I'm just gonna have a shitty life, or I guess I'm never gonna live up to the values and the things I'm truly committed to. But this container, I am. This one is the non-negotiable one. You know, does my mind go to these places where like, hey, what if? I'm just like, yeah, but still, this is the person I want. This is the person I'm committed to. And I think that's one of probably the most fundamental thing in my marriage. All the other stuff are just benefits from that.
The commitment to being together.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. I have this a relative of my brother, Kiwi. He, his parents-in-laws, and he says they have this like thick Georgian accent, and his father-in-law, and he says, I'm not gonna do the accent because I can't, but he said, I just hearing it in my head with that accent. He says the problem with Americans is that they want to get married because they love somebody. We love marriage.
Beautiful.
We love marriage, and then you figure out how to love each other. With this, I think it's similar to what you're saying.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if I would call it we love marriage or we value marriage. I would say we're committed to loving each other, which means there is love, which is called the feeling, and there's loving, which is more
Action.
Action.
Right.
So I've seen clips of this, but it's so true, and it's like annoyingly, hilariously true. But like, you'll have a husband and a wife that they're upset at each other, but they still need to get dressed in the same bedroom, and they're still in the closet, and they're just like, can you pass me that thing? Fine.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You know?
Yeah. Well, let's go get the kids in the car. Let's get the kids in the car. All of a sudden we're driving. We're still upset, but like, we're still going shopping. We're still gonna prepare for Shabbos. And guess what? If you continue doing the things that people who love each other do, you're gonna come back. There's gonna be a certain point in time. Like, there's a very beautiful, special moment that I don't think I'll ever forget. And I refer to it because it was the moment I realized what I was doing as I was doing it. My wife and I got into an argument, and I think it was around Purim time, and we're in the closet, getting dressed or something like that, all upset, all like in our own little thing. My wife is usually the one to try to like have the conversation. I'm the avoidant one, and it took a lot of courage for me to do this. It was very, very difficult, but I just said, I just want to love you. And I was just like melted into a hug. And that was it. That was the end of the argument. Was the disagreement still there? Yes. Right. But the relationship was full on.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah.
I'm relating to so much what you're saying, and I am so grateful that there are people that are experiencing. I mean, I could say very similar stories about myself. They'd be redundant because you just said it, but that idea of just in the middle of the chaos,
yeah,
you see the big picture. It's like, I'm in a relationship with this person. Like, I got that blessing. We'll figure out the details. We'll change the paint. We'll, like in the paint thing, like we'll figure it out. But sometimes you have that clarity, which has happened to me so many times like that. I'm just like, I don't know how we're going to figure this out, but we're going to figure this out.
Right.
Because we're in it.
Yeah. I refuse to be in a continuous argument with you. I refuse to be miserable, even if it means, excuse me.
You need like a napkin or something?
Me?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm good.
All right, come on. Yeah. Okay.
Just a little itchy throat.
No, that's fine.
The way I put it into words is I will do my best to choose freedom over truth. The truth is you did that. The truth is that this is what the Torah says. The truth is that I'm right. Whatever. I'm just not willing to have truth get in the way of my freedom or my relationship.
Right.
So it just happens to be that the more I choose freedom over truth, the more truth I get to experience. Like just the other day,
And freedom is that connection.
freedom is the connection, the love, the relationship, the harmony.
Well, I was sitting with a bunch of guys. I know you're about to go into something, but I forgot. I probably forgot it anyway. No, so I was sitting with a bunch of guys, and they asked me a question about God, and I said, I don't know if I could answer the question about God, but I could answer it about my relationship with my wife, because they were saying, where do you relate more to the love or fear? They were asking about God. I'm like, maybe when I know you a little better, I'll answer it about God, but I could answer you about my wife. And I think I equally feel love and fear for my wife. Now, what does that mean to me? Is that I have unbounded love for her. Like, I want to be with her. Mm-hmm. And the idea of being distant from her is the most terrifying thing I can think of. Mm. So I have that fear. Now, in Hasidus, I guess that makes sense. It's about the relationship, and anything we do that's in the antithesis to God's will, it makes us separated from him.
Right.
So, but together, they make up my connection with my wife. Like, there is a lot of fear there.
Oh, that's interesting because it's actually was just in yesterday's Sefer Mitzvahs. This the love and fear of God.
Okay, let's hear.
And there's two levels when it comes to fear of God. One is I'm afraid of the punishment, the consequences of being distant or whatever alone. And the other one is awe of how she's so great. And then that creates meditating. So how do we experience fear of God in a higher level as opposed to fear? Meaning fear of losing, fear of consequences,
Right.
is when we meditate on the greatness of God. And that instills and that awakens awe within us.
Right.
So,
okay, let me ask you a question that I should probably ask your wife.
okay.
But she's not here. She's on vacation.
Yeah, she's on vacation.
Hopefully having a blast.
Yeah, yes. I have no doubt she's
It's
having
so
a
cool.
blast.
It's so cool that she's on vacation. I love it.
Yeah.
The question I have is, how did she know that you were going to be all right? Why did she stick around? Why did she stick around? Why do you think? You've asked her.
I don't think she thought that I would. I don't think. She had good reason to not marry me, but I think there came a certain point that she had dated quite a few other guys, shidduch dates, that she was like, no matter what, he's still the one. And she was nervous even the day of our wedding.
Right.
For good reason. I was a wreck on the day of our wedding. Super anxious, couldn't eat, had no appetite. Yeah.
So you're saying, I'm saying is she stuck around because you're the one.
Yeah, I don't think it was because
Nothing
she
you
thought
did.
I would change.
Oh, really?
I don't think so. That's my answer on her behalf.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think she thought I would change. I think maybe deep down she was hoping I would, but I don't think she was counting on that. It was just like he's the one. I can't keep denying that. I can't keep running away from it.
It's like a very powerful spiritual connection. Like, it's just seeing
Yeah.
through. it's interesting because it goes back to your stuff you were saying about shame. Like, it's even though you thought that was you, somehow she was able to see through that.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Okay, so why you decided to devote your life to helping everybody? Let's hear a little bit about that.
Well, I'll tell you.
Although I want to stay. I hate to say this, but I am. That was one of the greatest conversations I've ever had about marriage. We didn't even go that deep, but like there's so many people that I know that are going through this process of struggling with their marriage and whether addiction's involved or not involved. It's really hard to have hope when you look around and you see everybody struggling. It's just so many people. Like when you find out,
so many people getting divorced,
and so many people getting divorced, and like it's an option. Like it's an option, and people have said to me like it's better for my kids if we're divorced. It's like there's so much like stories around this, and there's so few people just saying, of course. I go through all these things. We go through all the stuff that everybody else goes through, but we understand that this is like the highest level we can get to. That's how I feel all the time.
I'll tell you. I've said this many times. I'm happy to say it again. So I work the 12 steps.
Right.
And my wife has made it to 98% of my 10 steps. Meaning, what does that mean for anybody who doesn't know? 10 step is daily inventory, where we take stock of any resentment, fears, or harms done we've done to others on a daily basis. I don't do it on a daily basis, but perhaps I'm somebody that could do it.
Okay.
But I don't. But I have done it, and she has made it to 99% of my daily inventory, of which I say I'm resentful at my wife for this and this reason. Therapy, coaching, and thereby, I would say 90% of my growth as an individual has come through my relationship with my wife.
Wow.
So here's let's put it into a nugget. And this is a big concept that I try to bring to my coaching. Many people look at conflict as an invitation to compromise. I want this, you want that. Each one of us is going to have to get a little bit less, or one of us is not going to get it all, and the other one is going to get everything. Compromise. What I've learned is a much more helpful possibility, and that is that it's an invitation to transcend. If you're willing to stay in the conversation, stay at the table, don't leave yet, and let's just keep asking ourselves, how can you get what you want through me getting what I want? How can you get more of what you want than if you would have just taken the whole pie right now? Through helping me get more of what I need. So instead of saying you need to get less, I need to get less, it's like, let's stay here and figure it out. Because when we figure it out, both of us are going to end up with more.
Wow.
And that has been my experience over and over and over again.
Have you ever read the book The Third Alternative by Stephen Covey? Because,
No.
please read that book. Okay. I know I'm suggesting books today. But, no, that's his whole thing, is that when you compromise, both people lose. Like, nobody walks out of a compromise happy. I gave something and you gave something. We're all miserable. Like maybe it's better than we were before because we got something.
No, it's actually,
But the third alternative is there's something else. If you stay there, you'll find it. That's what you're saying. You're almost saying in a spiritual way, but like he breaks it down very, very beautifully. I like it better than his other book.
Oh, okay, cool.
Everybody knows his other book, The 7 Habits. Do I have it? Third Alternative. It's there. I'll lend it to you if you want it. You can borrow it. It's gonna make my stack a little lower.
Based on what I believe about myself today,
Yeah.
I'm not going to read it.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Audio book.
Maybe an audiobook. I have a list of like 40 audiobooks that I just haven't gotten to.
It's true. My big problem is that I've dove fully back into fiction, and I don't want to read any nonfiction anymore. So it's like I have to force myself to read nonfiction, but fiction is like I could just read for zillions and zillions of hours.
Right, that's like I for sure know. Like I'm not.
No fiction.
No, I'm not going to waste my time with that.
Are you kidding me?
No way.
Did you ever like fiction? Were you a reader? Like,
No.
oh, okay.
Actually, okay, whatever. I was about to say something, but it would make somebody look bad, so I'm not going to do it.
Okay, now I really want to hear. We'll get it afterwards. But yeah, there was a point in my life I was reading a full book a day.
Whoa.
Yeah, as a teenager, like I just would read a full book every single day,
Wow.
like big, like 500-600 page books. Like,
Wow. Yeah.
I was unstoppable.
In the
Like,
beginning of my coaching career, one of the first things that came to my coach, I hired a coach right when I started. And so, yeah. And one of the big things I said, was like, my goal was to read a lot of books. And he challenged me. He's like, "What do you want to read books? If I read books, then I'll have wisdom. And what are you going to do with wisdom? I'll be a better coach." So what he offered me was that the lesson that I will teach my clients from the fact that I don't read a book will be greater than any of the lessons I'll read in a book. And I can still read a book. But I have to get over this idea that I have to read the book in order to have wisdom, and then I'll be good enough, and then I'll be able to call myself a coach, and then I'll be able to coach people, and then they'll be able to get the help.
I 100% agree with this coach, whoever it was.
Yeah.
I have this weird time where I was hitchhiking in Israel as a kid, and I got picked up by this like literature professor
Okay.
in Hebrew University or something. She was so intelligent. And I'm like 16-year-old kid, and I'm in love with reading, and we got into a whole discussion. I was so excited to have a discussion with her because she was like beaming with like, I was like, "Wisdom, tell me more," you know. And she said to me something that literally changed my entire experience with reading, which was, she said, "If you're not enjoying the book, put it down." And I'm like, "But I have to finish the book. I started the book."
Yeah.
She's like, "Books were created for your enjoyment. You could learn something from them. That's fine. But you're supposed to enjoy reading that book. And if you're not enjoying it, put it down. Get another. There's thousands of millions of books out there."
Yeah.
And this is from someone who was a lover of books. But I literally would get stuck, and it had to do with the lie that somehow is connected to who am I if I'm the person who can't finish a book, or, similar to the idea that you're saying is like, I want to be something, so I'm going to change who I am to be that thing. And your coach is saying you're already that thing.
Yeah. Don't have your preoccupation with your need to learn get in the way of you helping people. Because right now you can help people.
Right.
So start helping people. Oh, you want to read books? Read books. That's fine.
Okay, so I have a total different question. What is the difference between like a coach and a therapist? What is a coach? What is a coach? What is a coach?
Well, it's a scam.
Was that implied in the question?
No, I saw somebody wrote it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I was like, "Coaching is a scam, April Fools," and it was from a coach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I reverse Uno'd that guy, and I was like, "It is a scam." No. Okay.
Look, I think that there are many therapists who practice like coaches, and they bring the benefits of coaching into their therapy. There are many coaches that bring the great things that there are in therapy into their coaching. But generally, if the two opposites of the spectrum would be bad therapy and insensitive coaching, right? So a coach generally is somebody who is less focused on the problem, which means, and I'm not speaking for all coaches, I'll just speak for myself. When somebody comes to experience coaching with me and they begin their process with their problems, I'm happy to hear their problems, but I'm holding in myself like, okay, this is they're talking about the obstacle. This is the obstacle, this is the obstacle, the obstacle. And then once I've respectively heard what they have to say, okay, now what's this in the way of? And they're like, well, I didn't even think about that. I've only been focusing on the obstacle all this time. So then I would like help them and coach them in how to even dream or think beyond that. And then it's like, okay, once we can establish what this is an obstacle to, now the coaching is all about achieving that. And if this is the obstacle, fine, we'll overcome the obstacle. But ultimately, the focus is on what is this obstacle in the way of, as opposed to the focus on the problem.
So is it that if you could figure out how to contextualize what is the obstacle of and where what's the obstacle, what's the goal, if you could contextualize it and put it in different words, people could actually just go and make that change? I guess I add to that question, which has been a struggle of mine in helping people, is that you could have all the brilliant answers, and you could really get down to how it's done and why it needs to be done this way, and you really could get down to it, and then people are just continuing their patterns, which ultimately, the therapy world believes comes from deep stuff in the past, usually trauma and other things. We call everything trauma now, but I'm saying, it comes from these patterns that are so deeply built in. So many times I know the answer, and then I just don't have the ability to go do it. So how does a coach address that? Do they have to sometimes go back to where the problems start, or do they?
Yeah, sometimes. But I think this is. Let me make another point. And this is perhaps where I would classify what I do as deep coaching.
Okay.
And why would I say that? Anytime I meet with somebody, like my wife asked me the other day, do you believe that this person can get better or something like that? I said, everybody can get better. And she knew to okay, I get it. That's you. That's me. I'm somebody that I relentlessly believe in people.
It's beautiful.
I will relentlessly believe in you, no matter what you show me. And I'll. So on the other hand, I'm here with you. I hear your story, and I empathize with your experience of believing that story, believing that you're the bitter peel. And I could see how difficult it is, and I'll do my best to be patient as you unlearn that you're not the bitter peel. But that's my position in this relationship. I'm going to be the person that's just simply never going to stop believing in you.
This is a little bit like devil's advocate, because I agree with what you're saying, but I'm going to challenge it.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, we've both seen situations that people really did not get better, and they seem to have tried and tried and tried. What gives you that unwavering belief?
It's a commitment.
What does that mean?
It's a commitment. I'm committed to being with my wife. It's a commitment.
You committed to believe that?
Yeah. Okay, so that is what I believe is a deep concept. The idea that I'm committed to believing something. I'm committed to doing something. I think that's the place where most of my life I've only gotten to. I'm committed to do something, or I'm not committed to do it. If I do it, then it means I'm committed. If I don't do it, then I'm not committed. That's proof. Right?
Okay.
If I committed, I'm doing it. If I'm not committed, I'm not doing it. Committed to believing is, here's a wild example, okay? I was at a Shabbos meal by somebody, I guess Litvish.
Okay. Snag. Shh.
No, I wouldn't call him a snag.
Not a snag.
Above sweet guy.
Sweet guy.
No, really. What?
Because you made that worse. Because you're like, he's not a snag, he's a nice guy. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, no.
There are nice snags. No, go on, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I haven't used the word snag.
There's some people, my best compliment I've ever got from a Chabad person is that I'm not a snag.
Uh-huh.
I don't fully understand why it's the best compliment, But it's
So
the
let me
best
tell you- let me
compliment.
tell
Okay,
you-
so now you're gonna
Let me
explain it
t-
to
no,
me.
I have to
Thank
tell
you.
you a story. My brother on Purim, about maybe 6-7 years ago, he's outside my parents' house and a snag comes by and says, "Hey, Rabid, can you please get me a lighter? I need a lighter for my cigarette." And my brother's like, has never smoked a cigarette in his life. He's like, well, I don't have any lighter. And he's like, please do a mitzvah for Yid, obviously Stroll. Get me a lighter. I don't know what the guy was doing in Crown Heights. Anyway,
Looking for a lighter, man.
he's looking. Anyway, he goes
definitely a
inside.
lighter,
He goes
Crown
into my
Heights.
parents' house. He gets matches or something. He comes back out and he gives the guy a light and he says, "Listen, because you did such a mitzvah of Avos Yisrael, I'm going to share you a story about Avos Yisrael." I'm laughing already. It's so bad. He says a friend of his was looking for a job. He was having a hard time finding a job. Everything he tried, he didn't get a job. So he goes to his Rav and he asks him, maybe if I take off my yarmulke, when I go in for interview, I'll get a job. And after back and forth, the Rav says, you know what? You have a heter. You can take off your yarmulke. He goes, he's about to go to an interview, and he asks his friend, the one that asked for the lighter. He asked him for a ride. He gives him a ride there. And as he's leaving the car and about to go to the interview, he notices that his friend has his yarmulke on. And he says, "Hey, you forgot to take off your yarmulke." That's Avos Yisrael.
I like that story. It's a sweet story. No?
Whatever.
You know
I
what?
can't handle it.
I'm sorry you enjoyed that story, but I like that story because the story implies how much he disagreed with that idea to take off the yarmulke, and he was still willing to go beyond it. Okay, I'm sorry to ruin your great joke because it was a good one, but I think that story's kind of sweet. But I
Okay,
think you have
great.
to get into the snag mind
Yeah, maybe.
to understand why that story is so sweet.
Maybe.
There you go. Okay.
Okay.
All right. But
I
what?
have more work to do on
You
that.
have more work to do. I like that story, but I only like the story from the context of the people I'm thinking about who I consider like super snags.
Gotcha.
Like in that world, to say that,
Is actually real.
like, wow.
Gotcha.
Like, you know? Okay, well, we'll get there. No, so you were
I'm
saying your
sitting by the
commitment
Shabbos-
to belief.
Yeah, I'm sitting there by the Shabbos table, and he's asking me different questions. And one of the things he asks about is the Rebbe Mashiach and things like that. And I confidently said, I believe that the Rebbe is Mashiach, and I believe that he's alive. He has some questions about that.
Right.
So, here's what my answer was. Everything, we talked about the punishment of the guy who created time, who discovered time.
Yeah.
Everything is about now. Although there is a continuum of time, I know that exists. But what's primary is now. If anybody's learned Perek Lamed Beis in Tanya, I want to do a workshop on this. In Perek Lamed Beis in Tanya, it talks about how if anybody who makes their guf the ikr, their body the ikr, and their nefesh, their soul, as a secondary, will never experience true love. Okay? So you have to focus on the soul. So I think there is that in time and in many things. There's a soul and a body in everything. The soul of time is now. It doesn't mean that the continuum of time doesn't exist. You have to have a guf. It's also very, very important. In fact, it's the second most important thing. It's just not primary. Okay. So, if now is all that matters, when I am somebody who believes that the Rebbe is alive, how do I behave? How do I talk? How do I walk? How do I live? How do I feel? What am I empowered to do? How am I empowered to live? In this moment, when I believe that the Rebbe is alive, I get to be more me here now. Just like, I can't really compare myself. I'm just going to say, there, in another context where this idea can be applied are the Jewish people, as they're going into the gas chambers, they're singing Ani Mamen.
Right.
How are you singing Ani Mamen? Everything in front of your eyes, everything that you wish, everything, everywhere you look, is proof that there's no God and Mashiach's not coming. what the hell's wrong with you? Why are you singing Ani Mavin? Why are you singing Ani Mavin? Because based on this idea, I want to live my last few moments in I want to truly live, I want to live out my last few moments in the best, most effective way possible. And that is by being a Jew that believes in Mashiach and that he's going to come. Because more of life will be experienced through this body of mine, through believing that Mashiach's going to come. So, it's a choice to believe. I am choosing to believe it because of what it creates through me, in me, as me, in this experience. Yeah?
Yeah.
So, I choose to be committed to believing that every single person can be free, that is good, and they can save their marriage, and they could get well, and they could have a good life, and they could lead a good life. And I'm committed to believing that, even if I have proof that that's not true.
Do you think that's essential? I love what you said. I don't know if I agree with everything, but I didn't choose to believe.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a horse in the fight of whether the Rebbe's Mashiach or alive.
Yeah.
It's a
Okay,
different
look,
story.
for you to if for you to believe that the Rebbe is Mashiach doesn't allow you to experience more vitality than if he's not, then I'm all for vitality.
Right. Okay.
I'm all for life. Right? So if for you to not believe it is great. I want more of Sani's being alive.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's I'm just putting it aside. I agreed with the idea, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to. I didn't want it to go in context that I for sure believe certain beliefs that I don't necessarily believe or disbelieve.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying that. But do you believe that it is the essential precursor to healing someone is to believe that belief? Like, why do you need to believe it? Why don't you just try your best?
I'll tell you an answer that's occurring to me in this moment.
Okay, good. Oh, this is the best moment.
Yeah. When I am being somebody who is practicing the idea, the possibility, that you can choose what to believe. Okay, so I'm choosing to believe that everybody can do it. When I am somebody that is practicing and a living example of the possibility that you can choose to believe something,
Right.
and through believing that, you actually start thinking, speaking, and acting accordingly. And through thinking, speaking, and acting accordingly, that will actually shape your life and increase your chances of succeeding. When I am modeling that for the person, that's probably the best possible gift I can ever give them. The modeling of the ability and the possibility that you can believe in yourself and you could choose to believe in yourself. And through choosing to believe in yourself, you can actually achieve everything you want in your life. And we could also, this is already backed in science. Like, I don't even need to keep it in theory or keep it abstract. This is very practical.
Right.
What you
Because if
focus
my
on-
question is a double question, then you answered both the questions, which is, do we think it's essential to change to believe that we could change? I mean, you're modeling what they need to do to change because everything in their life has told them that they cannot change.
Yeah.
And you're saying you have to first believe that you can change.
Right.
And that is
Oh,
a choice to
yeah.
believe
Yeah.
because everything's going against it.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 100%. And one of the ways that I help people seeing how they can change is through showing them how they created the belief that they can't change in the first place. If I can show you how you created the belief that you can change and this is who you are, then you'll automatically learn that you can change it and believe something else.
So for that, you'd have to go back a bit in their life, no?
Sometimes, yeah.
So coaching does go back?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, there's
Deep coaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deep
sometimes
like spiritual. Deep.
No, I call it deep because I acknowledge that this is not so typical. I think I'm sure there are coaches who do this type of work, but I acknowledge that most of the coaches that I'm in touch with, and I've been doing this for about 7 years, are not getting this deep with people and don't have such depth to their own work before they show up to the session.
Right.
I could be talking to somebody, they'll have no idea necessarily that this is what's going on behind the scenes for me.
Right. And you're a lot of it is the modeling. How much you bringing, let's say, Hasidus into this?
I guess it depends who I'm speaking with, but a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, it's so helpful.
So, because this is actually a very interesting thought of mine, which is like, how is the rest of the world doing it without? Meaning, there's such a tool here to be able to see this in a deeper way. How is the world doing it without? I do know parts is very Hasidus like.
Yeah.
But besides for that, there's not a more, like the way you're talking, the language you're talking is that you are special. Not you're going to be special, you're going to fix this and get over that challenge. There is a part of you, the real, not a part, the real you is a glowing ball of, I forgot the words you used, but it was like loveliness.
Yeah.
You were talking about it, but I don't remember the exact words. Yeah. But that's it. That's you now.
Yeah.
That's a Hasidus thought. Isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't read that.
Yeah. Look, there are schools of thought. There are like philosophies that are based on this. I mean, even if you look into the founder of IFS, Richard Schwartz, he talks about in his book. Okay, I did read a little bit of his book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I like how Jews always use his full name. I don't know why.
As opposed to
everybody calls him Dick Schwartz. Everybody's like Richard Schwartz. We know who he is. All right, go on. Dick
we
Schwartz.
say Shabbos Dick and Yom Tov Dick, but we can't say Dick Schwartz.
Can't say Dick Schwartz. Doesn't make sense.
So
yeah. So what did
freaking funny. So he talks about,
because I heard why we was calling him Richard. You know,
right?
Yeah, it's like we have a certain politeness. All right, go on.
He talks about the self with a capital S, and he says that in Judaism they call it this, and in this religion they call it that, and this. So there are other
right. So I'm saying in parts work like that. Richard Schwartz is one of the only people. Harav Richard, is one of the only people that I've really seen this. I guess there's more. I shouldn't say that. My brother Kiwi will kill me. He'll give me. He knows all the mandamas. He'll tell me that a lot of people believe this. The humanistic approach is definitely more along the lines of understanding exactly who this person is in front of us. I could tell you with the work that we're doing here, it's like it is so built into the core. What I mean here is our village. It's so built in to the core of like every staff meeting, every meeting we have with the guys that you are already better. It's not, you're there.
Yeah.
Now, how do you peel this away? It's fascinatingly not a lot of discussions about addiction. There are guys in this house that I don't know what their like primary addiction is. Like not, I mean, I know what it is. It could be drugs or, or some sort of process addiction. But I'll be like, I won't even necessarily spend time on like, oh, did you like coke? Did you like heroin? Like the discussions are not about that. It's about peeling away these layers. But a place like this doesn't work without that concept. And you're saying choose to believe. Without the concept that everybody will just be better. As a matter of fact, I think we're surprised when somebody leaves without getting better. You know what I'm saying? Like right. Most programs, so it's like...
You have this theory actually built in. You are somebody who's committed to believing that this person is more than his addiction. And the more I focus on the more he is than his addiction, the better he gets.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. I just wanted you to say it because you're here. No.
Yeah, 100%.
No, but I really, really believe that, and I think it's essential. I think one of my pet peeves, and Ellie looks like he's had a long night. He's jumping around, making me nervous. The one of my pet peeves is that in the addiction world or the recovery world, we have just said, well, 20% is pretty good. It's
We said 10%
Right.
is very successful.
right. That's successful.
Yeah.
And to me, just shut it down.
Yeah.
I don't mean, like, if that's your goal, like, I think it's a higher percentage of someone just saying, I want to stop drugs than going to rehab and stopping drugs. Like, more people stop the other way. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with rehab. It just, we have been sold a lie that's all right. Like,
Yeah.
that's all right. No, 100% is the goal. If we hit 80 by accident, fine. If you hit 70 because we didn't get to that guy yet, okay, fine. That's how I feel in this place every single day. And I think just that fact that we all believe that is giving people, like you said, the modeling of you can believe that about yourself too.
Yeah. Yeah. Many of us don't have that modeling. Yeah. Like, okay, humbly, I say this just because I really think it's going to be helpful.
You can never say humbly because it's not going to sound humbly at all.
Okay, I don't give a shit.
I'm just kidding. Go on.
Whatever. I still want to make.
All right,
point.
humbly. This is the point.
I've heard from quite a few of my clients that I've worked with for long term, that long after we finished working together, they would say that, sometimes I go through really difficult times and I hear your voice in my head saying something, and I follow it, and it's been one of the greatest gifts that I have. They're not hearing my voice.
Right.
Baruch Hashem, I've had the opportunity to create a model for them of how they can behave and act with themselves.
Yeah.
So when you have people coming in here, they very likely have never had that modeling. They don't have that character in their puppet show inside their head.
Right.
They just need that modeling. They need to have that character. Or they need an awakening of that character.
Right.
Which come upon him. Like So I think I want to say that, and I also want to say that we say when somebody's has a loss, God forbid, we say Hamakim Menachem Aschem.
Right.
Hamakim is referring to God.
God, right.
God should comfort you. I like to play with those words and say the space comforts you. When the village, I'm looking over there, but really,
the living room.
that's not the living room.
Which is also
The village comforts you.
Yes.
When there's a village that believes in you, then the space itself is going to provide you with what you need. And it's going to happen not directly. It's going to happen indirectly. It's going to happen by osmosis, by modeling.
Dude, it's so amazing what you said, because I gave a lecture once, and I never really brought this out, but I got to bring it out in a lecture. But our whole model is based on Shiva. It's based on the idea of Shiva. Because in Shiva, we don't say to the guy, get up, get a job, get your act together, sit here. Right now, the community holds you. That's what happens. Like get up, make food. Nothing. Guys ask me, what am I supposed to do now? I said, try to let us in. That's your job. For the first couple of months of being here, try to suspend your disbelief that no one could love you. Just try your best to let us in. That's your whole job. Our job is to hold you so wonderfully and delightfully, I don't know the word, that you know hamakom, like you're saying, that the place is going to hold you no matter what. And it's the reason I learned all this was when I asked people, okay, what was good about that rehab? I went to a good rehab, a bad rehab, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, this is after years of looking at failures that I was able to figure out the successes. Mm-hmm. What's a good rehab? What's a bad rehab? And I'm listening to the stories. Oh, this is that rehab and the professional, this and that. And what I figured out is that every rehab that people referred to as a good rehab, it had nothing to do with the better clinical, they cared. If you just listen to the story a little longer, they cared about me there. I'm like, oh, they created a mako, this place where that held you, and you said for the first time, oh, it's all right. It's all right to be me.
Yeah.
And that's it. It was let
Oh,
off.
so
So
here's
now you
what's
know.
happening.
Now you know my secret. I got it all from Shiva. Shiva's the trick, man. Every
the
time
Shiva.
someone's, it's the Shiva, exactly. No, every time someone gives me a lot of pressure, like, "Well, do you have him in therapy all day?" And I'm like, he's being held. He's being held.
Yeah.
This guy, if he doesn't want to go to therapy, that's not what he's up to right now. He's in the middle of Shiva. We'll figure it out. He knows what we would like him to do. But it's not about that. If he is not feeling held, he's not moving to the next stage. So I love what you said about Hamakamana. You just nailed it right where in my heart. That's what I'm saying. In my heart.
Wow, I've never seen you so like sentimental.
I get very sentimental.
Okay.
I get very sentimental. Okay. Because I am not able to sit with you all day long, I'm going to ask you my question, which is, what is your message that you want to, I mean, you have your own platform, but this is a new platform. Like, what's your message? You want to, like, your rooftop message, shout to the world. What is it? What is it that's, that you feel like saying?
I feel like saying one message here now. We've all experienced a certain level of trauma. What that means is that at a certain point in our life, we had an experience that from then on we started believing something about ourselves, about God, about the world, or others. We began believing something, chose to believe, right? We began believing something about ourselves. And as a result of believing that about ourselves, we started responding to that. If I believed that I am alone, if I believed that I'm stupid, I now am on a mission to start proving that I'm smart. So we're constantly compensating for that belief. To the extent that we become amazing at compensating for that belief. We become incredibly intelligent. We become incredibly sensitive. We become incredibly good with people. We also end up sacrificing things, and we end up stepping on ourselves, and we end up in addiction in the process of being extremely sensitive, extremely people-pleasing, extremely smart, right? So, usually the coping mechanism that we establish in response to a negative core belief. So we create a core belief in a traumatic moment. I'm stupid. I don't matter. I'm not loved. I won't be loved. I'm not a part of. The response to that ends up becoming our superpower. At a certain point in time, in our recovery, we're like, I don't want the superpower. Take it. Take it and the pain. I just don't want any of it. I just want to be okay. I don't want to be a hero. Just take it all. I don't want I don't want your blessings, and I don't want the problems. What I ask of you is to consider that when you can let go of the core belief that you're bad and also still hold on to your superpower, you'll find your purpose in life.
So that the pain has created a superpower that we got to figure out. We have to choose to want it.
Yeah.
If it's being forced upon you, it hurts you.
Yeah, but the thing is, what I found, like the story of Moishe Rabbeinu, was one of the things I did in my work, is to study the story of Moishe Rabbeinu and how he tried to wiggle his way out of his leadership role. It's just not. It's gonna be it's gonna be more painful to try to avoid your leadership role. Everybody has a leadership role. In fewer words, everything I just said is it's coming from a different perspective, but the puzzle of the piece in the world that you keep notice is missing. And wherever you go, it's always missing, and it pisses you off, and it gets you angry, and you have so much pain, suffering, and agitation, and frustration from the fact that it's missing. You're the piece. And the only time you'll notice it's missing is when you're not inside the puzzle.
I like that a lot. You're the piece.
Yeah, you are the piece.
Dude, yeah, I'm trying to do a podcast. He's mic dropping all over the place. I will tell you, it just the trick to not having to say humbly, is you create a program, and then you just say my staff and I. You know what I mean? Like, then it's like you could show off all you want, but it's because the team. It's a trick.
Okay. All right.
You never have to say humbly. It's
All right.
fantastic.
Guys, I'm creating a program. If you're interested in joining my program,
Yeah.
I need a team to blame all the good things that happen.
There is so many more things I want to talk to you about that I feel cheated a little, even though because I got to move on with my life.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
But
Thanks for that comment.
everything you said, I love that you shared about your marriage. I love it, and I love about your journey, and I just thank you for coming. It's awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for this day that I've been given. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this chance. Thank you for this chance to live anew.